Trish Edwards.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. Thanks for jumping into the lab with me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I hit the record right off the bat, as you probably can see. Oh, did I lose you?
Did I just freeze?
Yeah, you just froze, but you're there. You're 100% there.
I'm here now.
You're there now. Yeah.
Sorry.
So I hit the record right off the bat because the best conversations are the ones that happen naturally and organic.
Absolutely. I'm game.
Without script. Because as you saw,
right.
if you've seen any of my stuff, I don't script anything.
Yep. I think those are the best ones.
They are the best ones. Yes. So I'm excited that we're here, and I'm happy that you were comfortable enough to sit down and just say, hey, let's just have a chat. Now, we met in the old comment section on LinkedIn. Yes.
We sure did.
You were being a vulnerable soul.
I was.
And that word.
I am.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm glad you corrected yourself, because I don't think was is the way to frame this. What created my curiosity and interest in you was your willingness to be vulnerable. I believe a superpower, a skill. Is it a skill? A superpower, an attribute that a lot of humans.
It's something I practice.
Yeah. Well, what I like about it, though, is you publicly practice it in a space that many people would say, well, wait a minute, LinkedIn's not a place to be vulnerable. LinkedIn's not a place to be personal. But to be frank with you, and this is not to come out the wrong way, that's what drew me to you, right? Because I'm like, well, wait a minute, this person is big. This is a real, there's no AI bots going on here. This is a real human being here. Your art, your drawing, your words, love the way you pulled your words together. So anybody listening right now, I invite you to check out Trish Edwards' LinkedIn profile, or perhaps her Instagram. Your art, hand-drawn. Mm-hmm. Your words, all by me. Very vulnerable.
All mine.
Who's Trish Edwards?
She is, she's a creative who never knew how to use her creativity until she was probably around 51. So, although despite I've always had creative jobs.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
I didn't really understand it.
You're 51?
I'm 53.
Gotta rewind this. So unfortunately, Nation, we're recording this and you can't capture this live because old Uncle Keith here is just kind of shopped and stopped in his tracks here. Hold on. Good lighting, good genes, good for you. Wow, I wouldn't even, but more important, did you just say to me that you just became vulnerable at 51?
Yes. You know, I think that as a woman, as a female growing up in the time period that I grew up, there are a lot of, maybe it's not even just about being female, because it might be everybody, that I feel, at least in my experience, there was a lot of, you need to control that emotion. You need to do this. You need to do that. It's like, wash yourself down. Don't let them see your weakness. Don't let them see you cry. Like, I would never, up until probably some time after meeting my husband, that I would let anybody cry. Like, that was like a zero, not happening. And you end up building this layer of armor year after year. And it becomes so thick that at some point you don't even know who you are. Like, the armor is protecting not you from others. It's hiding you from you, and you don't even see what's going on. And that's what happened to me. It wasn't a fast thing. It was a slow build. But my 40s, I felt like I just built it a little faster and realized what was happening and had no idea what to do.
Jesus, that's a journey. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So, I'm lucky that I am, I guess, smart enough to know that it's not the way I wanted my life. I knew that it's not what I wanted. So I may not have known what the answer was, but I at least knew I didn't want this. And I'm sure there's some people who get so deep into that, they don't even know that they can say, I don't, that it just is. And it's just the way to be.
And then we just accept it.
Yeah. And, that kind of sucks.
Or I don't even know if we accept it. We subliminally or subconsciously allow it to happen. Maybe that's the better way to phrase it.
Yeah.
So Trish, we've sat down for 5 minutes. We jumped in right deep right off the bat. Awesome. Love that. Just kind of, that's the kind of conversations I like. It just draws people right in. But let's just pause there. Let's just back it up. Let's get the audience to frame out who Tricia Edwards is. So where are you joining us from, first of all?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Oh, the home of the LA Kings. I'm a hockey fan. So the home of the LA Kings. Are you a Kings fan?
I am not, but my husband just went to one of their games this weekend.
Oh, well, there you go.
I don't really follow sports, but
okay.
I know what the teams are.
There you go. I'm in Winnipeg, home of the Winnipeg Jets. So I know that we did a trade with you guys. I'm a big Jets fan, so I could have a good conversation with your husband about what I'm going to say next, because we had a good trade with you guys last year, and you guys got a player that frankly sucks, and we got a bunch of great players. So we won the trade, so it makes me really happy. So yeah, you can just tell your husband you talked to a guy who you met with somebody over there from the Kings. So anyways, are you born, raised, and bred from LA or?
No, Indiana, very small town, pig farm in Indiana, and then moved to New York for several years, and then kind of got a major burnout from working too many hours and moved to Los Angeles because it's nice and warm and sunny all year round, except it's not. As you can tell, I'm in a turtleneck. It's cold here today.
A couple of things jump out at me that you just shared with me. Was the fact that you're a Midwestern girl who then ran to the big city, going to New York, gonna go make it big. Then you're like, okay, this ain't working out. I'm going west. Next big city, going to LA. This actually not as warm as I thought it was. So, and then I got and then you Americans, I joke with my American friends that you guys are all just moving around. No, we're not happy in Indiana. We're going to New York. No, we're going to LA. And it's just what you guys all do.
I will probably be here forever. I'll probably be here till the end of my life, though, in Los Angeles, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. Where did you meet your husband?
Here in Los Angeles.
Oh.
Through eHarmony. I don't even know if that site is still a thing. Yeah.
Is it a thing? Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea.
That's well, good for you. So were you in, can I break some news? Were you in New York and you met the hubby on eHarmony and you moved to Los Angeles to go meet hubby and that's how it all came? Oh, all right. Wah, wah, wah.
I lived here for about 8 or 9 years before I met him.
So, okay.
Late in life, we got married when I was 39.
Wow.
I got married when I was 39. So
good for you, though. Good for you. You had a chance to keep getting to know yourself and getting to know life before you found that right person.
Yeah, for me, you got to find the right person. And it wasn't something that I don't think I was one of those people who set out the goal like, oh, I gotta get married, that has to happen in my life. It can happen if it's a person I can like being with.
Yes.
And so I think also that was nice meeting my husband later on in life because we both were single, had never been married. Mm-hmm. And we were pretty much like, hey, this is who I am. I'm not putting on a big show for you. I'm not interested in playing any games or anything. Here I am, warts and all. This is just, you love all of it or you don't. Like, what do you think? And turns out, we both enjoyed each other's warts, I guess, and it worked out.
That's the best part, right? That's the best part when you can accept each other with your own warts and accept each other for who you are. That's really what true love is.
Yeah, we work very well together. We're a great team.
That's fantastic. You've also shared with me you have a son named Beckett.
Yes.
Love the name Beckett.
11.
I've told you that as well. Love the name Beckett. I think it's a really great name. He's 11. Mm-hmm. Tell him, one son, more sons, more kids, or one son?
Nope, just one. Getting married later in life.
Yes.
One little bit of extra science in there to help with things.
Oh, okay.
And so one is the number, and kind of a cool thing about his name. We had this laundry list of names that we really wanted, and the ones that we really loved were taken by our friends' kids. So we're like, and. Yeah. So my husband is an actor, so he kind of liked, I think, is it Samuel Beckett, who was the playwright? Mm-hmm. And we're always trying to figure out, well, how are people going to make fun of him? So we're trying to pick a name that nobody can really make fun of as much as possible.
Yes.
And I have very fond memories of being in New York in my 20s. Mm-hmm. I couldn't afford TV. This is before there was no streaming anything. No one had a computer in the house.
Right.
And we had, the antenna things that you had to maneuver in place, and you could get basically one channel in New York, and it was PBS. And there was this show by Sister Wendy Beckett who talked about all this art. And she was a nun. She was a real sister, and she always talked about this erotic art. And I thought it was hysterical. It always like the juxtaposition of her and this art all being talked together. Yeah. And so I have fond names of Beckett. And so we ended up settling on Beckett. And we just found out last year that his name means keeper of the bees. That's what Beckett means. My son has, I think I might have mentioned, he's nonverbal. So he has his own way of language. He talks with an iPad, but he also has his own gestures. He has motor planning issues. So typical sign language, even though most people don't know sign language anyway, doesn't really work for him. But there's one thing he does with everybody is he points his finger out and he wants you to touch it with your finger. And we call it giving buzzes because he loves bees. And so it's just kind of this weird thing. Like we picked the name for a different reason. He loves bees. It turned out to be just really kind of came together. So it's kind of cool when something like that happens.
That is really cool how it comes to how it all comes together. How did you learn that, Tricia? Like
His teacher,
okay, yeah.
his teacher they had a project in the class where they were looking up everybody's names, and they're like, how cool. Like they came and told us, like, I didn't know that that's why you named him that. And we're like, what are you talking about? I have no idea. So they taught us, and it just was a nice little surprise. Worked out.
Trish, you said that Beckett was nonverbal.
Mhm.
What's your husband's name?
My husband is Eric
Eric.
Edward.
Eric. So what does Beckett teach you and Eric on a daily basis? Because I'm sure every single day you're learning something through the eyes of Beckett.
100%. The thing that there's two things, but the one that is an ongoing is about how people communicate. So he does what we call total communication, which he has an iPad that does text speak, or he can do pictures. He's had it the program since he was 3 to be able to communicate, but it's a slow process learning how to do that because just to say a 5-word sentence, you have to turn it on, go to the folder. Okay, that's word 1. Then it's a laborious process
Okay.
for especially for a kid.
Mhm.
So he does a lot of other things. So we watch his eyes, where his eyes gravitate towards. So like if we're going to play something on the TV, stream something for him, we'll see his eyes darting around and then they'll fixate on one of the options and we know that's the option he wants. There's a lot of body gestures and subtle touches. Like he might come and touch your hand. That means a variety of different things. Could be that he just wants your attention, or he wants you to go somewhere, or wants you to look at something. But you start to understand how people communicate so much more. And that helped me. I was educator for 18 years at the college level. And I had a lot of students who didn't all learn the same way. It was a school for creatives, but not everybody at the school was creative. And we had an international population as well as the ones who have the accommodations for learning, like longer test time, other things that they might need for their learning. And I found it to be so helpful because I looked at all my students differently. And now anytime I work with somebody, I think of them, I see everything that they're doing, not just what they tell me, to kind of help understand how they communicate.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Communication, I do a daily talk show 3 times a day. I love communication. I love the power of words. I believe that words can frankly solve. I wish I'm not naive enough to know they can't solve everything, but I certainly wish that we could use the power of more words to solve. But when listening to you speak about Beckett, how he communicates being nonverbal, it takes me and go with me here. It takes me to a place when I use technology like my Meta headset or like the Apple Vision Pro, where all the communication is done with my eyes and my gestures and my fingers. And as you were telling me about Beckett's communication journey and his ability to communicate, it actually frankly inspired me to think that perhaps this technology will unlock new abilities for Beckett to communicate with you and I. So, and I don't know if you caught the episode that I had with Di Manuel last week, Two Dads in Lab with AJ Zeglin. His daughter is also nonverbal. And I've interacted with Leighton. I know Leighton. I've spent time with Leighton. And hearing you speak of Beckett, it gave me some optimism that, wow, there may be these new technologies might unlock some brand new ways for us to communicate with nonverbal humans.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. If you develop whatever product you're making, developing, or service, if you can provide accessibility to
Yes.
the way that I would really want to phrase it, but for lack of finding a better word in the time frame, the lowest ability, and that the person with the lowest skill sets to be able to access it, amazing things will happen, because even the ones with the higher skill sets now can do it faster, easier. It's less cognitive thinking to get there. It's a benefit for everybody. And the thing that I think with nonverbal people, as well as I know it's going to be others as well, but they're often looked at, well, if I can't talk, I probably can't hear. So people are going to say whatever they're going to say in front of you and forget that he can hear just fine. He gets exactly what you're saying. His expressive language might be a challenge, but what he takes in, he gets it. He knows exactly what you're saying.
Right. So what you're saying to me, Tricia, is, and for Business Athlete Nation, that Beckett hears everything I'm saying, and he could literally communicate back with me via iPad and text, but it would just take a really long time for him to put a paragraph together or paragraphs together. Hence, we don't really go down that route very often. But he's listening to what we're talking about, and he's reacting and communicating back with you and Eric in a very different way.
Yeah. And so if you cut off the fuel point of providing them something, so kind of going back to that accessibility,
Yes.
well, you have no idea what their potential really is then, because you never gave them access to anything.
Yes.
And so I can tell, I can't prove, but it seems to me that he has so much more in him. It's so much smarter than what we will ever know. Like, I can see him thinking and feeling and formulating, but that doesn't mean that he's wants to share it with us. And that could be the case for anybody, even if you are perfectly verbal, perfectly capable, neurotypical, or whatever. But
How does it make you feel recognizing that?
I think it's just really important to talk to people like they're ready for their next step, even if you don't see evidence that they're ready for their next step. So it's not about always talking down and keeping them in one place.
Right. Communicating with. Don't talk down, don't talk up, communicate to.
Yeah.
With, not at. There's a difference.
And it's good to go. You can go a couple steps above, because it's good to inspire. We all want to read something that maybe the first time we read it, wow, that's really dense. That's really hard. I don't really understand it. But I shouldn't be denied the capability or the opportunity to read it 500 times and then, oh, now I finally understand it.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't deny them that ability to further their growth.
Yes. Yes. Of course. Of course. Would you say, Tricia, that let me back it up. Had you and Eric known all along that Beckett was nonverbal, or at what point in Beckett's life did you recognize that there were some differences that you had to accept?
Probably not until he was 6 months.
Okay.
Our pediatrician knew week 1. I remember she said, because he has motor issues.
Okay.
She said he was a floppy baby, but she said, I don't want to label anything right now. So that means he has hypotonia, is what that's. Doesn't mean that you're not strong. Has something to do with not being able to control your muscles. Most kids don't. When you have hypotonia, you're very late on walking. You're late if you crawl at all. You're late on sitting up, and it not only affects like your gross motor, it's your fine motor skills as well, which also includes vocalization. And when he was 6 months, it was obvious that he was not sitting up the way that he probably should. And by the time he was 9 months, we had gotten a neurologist's opinion. And by the time he was a year, he was in therapy. But we weren't really too concerned about because even if you're a late talker, most people don't want to dish out any kind of therapy. And when he was around, it was like 17 or 18 months, he said his first word. And then he quickly gained words. Over the next 6 months, he was doing 3-word sentences. And then within 3 months after that, all the language. And he's had some words come back and then they go, and some words come back and they go. And right now, mostly it's very few words that he says that you can understand. They come and they go, but they're always on point. They always mean something. Like he might, in the middle of the night, might say mom, and he really does mean it. He wants mom. He wants help for something. But then there's other times that he says something, verbalizes, and I can't understand a single word. It sounds just like a jumbled mess of sounds. I can't decipher anything from it. But he'll repeat it multiple times. So I know in his head, I'm clear as day. I'm saying exactly what I'm trying to tell you, but you're not listening to me, or you can't understand it. But
And then
so he's actually, that's the second thing that I really get from him. He gets frustrated for a very brief moment and then he's over it. He is so even tempered and is always in a good mood and is generally happy.
Perhaps a reflection of his parents.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, we're not always happy. We have lots of those moments where we're not, but he's always generally pretty happy. He's like, he just lets it rolls off and he moves on.
When we sat down to chat, and I said that what drew me into you, Tricia, was your willingness to be vulnerable with your art, with your words. You shared with me at the beginning of our conversation your travels across the United States, and you've now introduced me to your family, Beckett and Eric, and I wanted to set the foundation to move into a conversation about vulnerability. It's a conversation I wish I spoke more about with people, frankly, and I think it sets it well based on how we've presented your history and how we presented maybe the foundation. Because you also have said to me that you didn't realize until 51, a couple of years ago, the power of being vulnerable and being yourself and being expressive. Yet, Tricia Edwards, you've moved frequently, you've had a child with special needs, you've had every ability to be vulnerable, to be expressive, to be aware, to use that superpower. Yet unfortunately, you weren't able to unlock it until late in life, weren't you? Like you said.
Yeah, especially for within myself.
Yes. Well, and then I'm glad you said that, because I have your post here that I wanted to read, which the hook was, Bapl Nation, how you see yourself is reflected in what you create. A creative's mind from the inside out. And then Tricia put a sketch that she sketched in September 2023, thinking about what makes her tick. You were exploring self-portrait work in that picture. Talk about this with me and talk about it with the audience, about how you use your art to be vulnerable.
It started when it was around like May of 22. I joined a coaching program. So it all kind of started when I was 47. I had this idea of so I had my son. I gained a lot of weight during when I had my son, and I had lost most of it, probably 20 pounds I wanted to get rid of. And when I was 47, I was like, you know what? Our 10-year wedding anniversary is coming up. We could renew our vows. We got married in Indiana. This would be an opportunity for people in California, a little celebration. I thought I would surprise my husband. I kept it a secret from him for a year and a half. I was like, I'm going to lose the weight and I'm going to get into my wedding dress. This is going to be like a fun thing. It's good. They always say if you want to lose weight, put that motivator, like a good event or something. 2 years, plenty of times, right? And all I did was gain. I didn't lose anything. And I didn't realize what was going on with my body, just a woman in her middle years of everything. No one talked about that, so I was pretty clueless. And then the summer that we would have done this event was 2020. So that sucked because that didn't happen. And because we were all shut down. And I know during that time, we just packed on more weight. It was stressful of being at home and work and everything. We were not one of those families that made bread, and tie-dyed t-shirts and had it was not quite like that. And so in 2021, I decided, you know what, I can't do the self-help stuff anymore. I need to work with somebody. So I signed up for a coaching program that was about mindset as well as weight loss, specifically for women who were in their menopausal type years. And oftentimes when I would meet with my coach, she would ask me things about my thoughts or my feelings. And my answer would always be, I don't know. I have no idea. I can't tell you. I don't feel anything. It was so obvious that I was so out of touch with everything about the me, the inside me, that I really had no idea. And she suggested, knowing that how much creativity was important in my life, that maybe what if I used my art as a part of it? And that's where it kind of started. And it started with me making art that I was directing art. I was directing it. It's not really pure expression because I directed what was going to be expressed because I thought somebody else is going to look at this, so they have to understand it. And I have to show my skills and, make sure everything's proportion and all of that stuff. And then I switched during the summer and I decided, I'm not even sure why I decided to do this. I let my body express the art. And so I might think about something and then I would have my art supplies out and I just made something without thinking about it, not planning, oh, I'm going to use pink here. And, I should put a lilac color here because over here is going to be blue and that's what's going to make it blend nicely. I didn't do that. I just put stuff down and I didn't care if it was perceived as ugly or whatever that definition would be. And once I was done with that, I would journal on it. And I started to oh my gosh, it just opened me up and I heard things and I felt things. And I even had some that was so powerful, I quickly put them in the drawer because I could not look at them. I had one that I looked at in January that I had hidden away for over a year because I could not look at it because there was something there I was just not ready to deal
Sure.
with. Yeah. So it's where it kind of all started.
I can relate to you. I know we're here to speak about your journey and to speak about vulnerability. But again, I want to go back to what drew me to relating to you is this here is my art. So while you use what's inside to bring out with artistry that we all can enjoy with our eyes, and I see your beautiful art. I really enjoy looking at your stuff. I really do. I have found my journey back into the world and to continue to be a vulnerable human being. This is my art. This is where I am as a creator. This is where I'm most comfortable. And if you were to listen to show 1 compared to show 500 that I'm on now, probably you're getting a real vulnerable, honest, raw Keith Bilous, because this is where I'm really comfortable. I don't think sure, I think before I speak. I'm very intentional, but like you with pulling colors out, and I don't sit down and write a script before I come into a show or do a monologue. I have some points. I put music on. People ask me about my creative process. That's why I was interested in you, because you're a creator. I can see your creativity. I'm thinking, I vibe with this girl, man, because I get her. She expresses it through creating art. I express it through speaking art. But at the end of the day, I consider myself like an artist, an entertainer, a creator. And then to be successful at it, let's go there. Got to be vulnerable. Got to be honest, because you can't hide it.
Isn't it freeing when you can do that you know that you can show up and you're not going to be like, stop doing that. Don't do that. Like,
Yes.
oh, you just said the wrong thing,
Yes.
Not beating yourself up.
It's why I chose to do the show live. Sorry to cut you off, but my show is naturally a live show. Monday to 7 days a week. I go live at noon for 2 reasons: to keep myself accountable. I've told the world I'm showing up at noon. So Trish is thinking, okay, well, Keith told me he's going to be there at noon. I got to show up. And then secondly, it taught me that by showing up, by being vulnerable, I got rewarded for that, right? Because being vulnerable in a raw, unedited, unscripted state, I don't know. I always use the analogy, Tricia, that right now I feel like, maybe you can relate to this. Right now I feel like I'm in the clubs, excuse me, and I'm working my way to the little concert halls, and then eventually I'm gonna go hit Madison Square Garden or the Staples Center. And the next thing you know, I'm going to be in SoFi Stadium displaying my art in front of 100,000 people. Like, that's my journey. That's my path. I see it, right? And I'm suspecting you see it the same way with the way you look at your art.
Yeah, the coolest thing that when I decided to do this, I did it for me. So,
Yes.
And I think sometimes that's also really important. There's so much in my life that I had done until this point because I thought either it was the expectation or I did it because somebody else thought that's what I should do.
Your parents.
And my parents, people you work for, hey, I think promotion's a really good opportunity for you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But when I started doing it, I was fully prepared for. I started small in a group. It was in the coaching group I was in, so it was relatively a safe space. But I was like, everybody here is going to think I'm really weird, and they may not talk to me, or they may think, wow, what a damaged person, and there's also that it's not that they're afraid of you or that they don't want to talk to you. I don't know what to say to you, so I'm not going to say anything because it's such a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just decided to just do it. And I remember the moment where I really went full all in for everybody in that group to see. And it was about sexual assault in my 20s. And it was something I had only told my husband a few days before I did it. Like, I had never told anybody. My family, I never told anybody. It was something that I always thought of every day, but I never told anybody. And just putting it out there, and that, you know what, it's just a thing. It's not. It actually became less of a thing by being okay with expressing and sharing. And I also have this thing that for one of the situation, I don't hate the person at all. I just don't. And that also seems wrong. Like, I should be upset at the person, but I'm not. I was always upset at myself, and just upset at myself. The other person's really kind of irrelevant in the story, and just being free and like, I'm just going to say it out loud, and I'm going to put it in words, and I'm going to make my art that reflects it, and get okay with being in touch with that. And that just led me to other opportunities. And what happened as I did more of that, other people in the group started coming to me, other people outside of the group in my life, like, something's different. What are you doing differently? People could see it, and then they wanted to gravitate towards it. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know what I was doing. They had no idea. It's like, I have no idea what you're selling. I don't know what you make. I don't know what you do, but I want to buy it. And that's kind of how it sort of came to me, in that way, I guess.
People, go with me here, Trish. Do you sometimes feel like people are intimidated by your vulnerability? Because and as you're considering answering that, I do, because I am so vulnerable. I am, and fuck, man, every single day I'm like even more than I was yesterday. Like, I went to hockey with my kid last night, and she's like, "Dad," like, "Ma," and like, I'm 52. I just want to be me, and I want to express myself and enjoy life. So I'm just going to continue to be that. But that intimidates people. It scares people.
It can, yeah, it can. But I think also it can also provide. So I'll share a story. One of the times that I was teaching, it's not necessarily completely about vulnerability, but this is how I kind of think about it in my mind. So I was teaching a class, college class, and there's one student who kept asking me to repeat the answer to something that we were talking about, and she did it several times in the class, and I could tell other students in the class were getting annoyed. And there was this one who had the biggest eye rolls and was just like, "Oh, like, this is the problem student in all my classes," kind of thing. And I have a policy in my class: you can ask me the same question 100 times, I don't care, I'll answer them every single time, because I know every time I say it, the answer, you're going to hear it in a different way. It might actually click. And this person, to others, it seems like she wasn't paying attention, but she was taking notes. She was doing things in her way that was for her. And so I just assumed that's what she was doing. And then I used that as an opportunity. I'm happy to answer that again. And here's why. And then I explained to the class, this is why I do this. These are good life lessons. The person who rolled their eyes the most, who was kind of like annoyed by it, all of a sudden I saw her sit in her chair, and she just relaxed down and was just like, and then she started asking questions. So she lowered her defense that, okay, so if it's okay for this person to be vulnerable and ask the question 15 times, that means I can ask the question one time, and no one's going to think that I'm not paying it. And I saw that happen, and I always kind of think about that. And I feel like I'm sure there will be some people who feel really intimidated, and there's going to be other people who are going to be quietly coming to you and say, "Hey, I want that. I don't have any idea how to do that. I don't even know if I'm strong enough to do that." But that will happen.
Yes. I agree with you there, Tricia. My previous company I started, I wrote a post on this. It was quite a successful post, actually. Many of my first employees were people that I think that a lot of society would have shunned: earrings and pierced noses and tattoos. And and I'm going to talk kind of a little bit back in the air quotes for my audience, olden days, when maybe, society wasn't as, I don't want to get into a woke discussion today, but into society it is today. So people probably wouldn't have hired some of the people that I hired, because they would have been judging them by the book. That's just how society was. Oh, if they look that way, I'm not hiring. But yet we all started working together, and they're seeing how I am, just this real, authentic human being, and they start drinking my Kool-Aid. And then what happens with them is that they start coming out as being, "Oh, this is actually this is a very safe space to work, because if he's going to be himself and raw and honest and just vulnerable, then I guess I can be as well, with my tattoos and my skinhead and how I may be perceived as different in the world." I've been able to get along very well with a lot of people that way. Does that make sense to you? Right? Because, and I'm sure you as well. You as well, I'm sure, because people are like, "Oh, Tricia's just standing there bare to see. She's got nothing to hide. She seems safe for me."
Yeah, I would say Although I will say a lot of at work, I like creating the space for everybody else, but
Yes.
I had a big wall between work and everything else in my life, where I wouldn't let anybody see anything else in my life other than Tricia. I had much of my life partitioned, like, here's the family Tricia,
Yeah.
and then here's the work Tricia, and then here's the Tricia when she's by herself, and no one gets to go in the other world.
But that's not what I see today.
It's not today, but that's what it was.
What it was, you were very intentionally compartmentalized.
Yeah, but in the end, all I did was the work one grew huge.
Yes.
The family one grew, and the one that was just all about me
Mhm.
became almost like nothing.
Mhm.
It got squeezed out.
It got squeezed out.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does your husband deal with your vulnerability? Is he equally vulnerable with you in your relationship?
He is so supportive.
Mhm.
He gets it.
Mhm.
He's if there's anything that I say that I need, he's like, "Yep, it's a yes. We'll figure it out. We always make it work."
Mhm.
He actually through him, he is a much more show his emotions on the surface.
Mhm.
I think also when you're an actor, like you can hide, but you can also tap into things rather
Mhm.
quickly because you might need it for that role.
Mhm.
And because him and his friends, they're not afraid to go to a movie and tell everybody that they cried their eyes out, during the
Mhm.
whole movie of
Mhm.
something that was sad. Where I would no, that's not me. There's no crying on there. Not today, but then that's what I would have done. I would have shut everything down, closed it off as tight as I could, so there was just no showing of that emotion.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that I've actually learned from him, from being with him, that it's okay to have it. And I think because of him in my life, I knew it was a possibility. And maybe that's why I asked for help in that, because I knew you could do that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So now, Tricia, you help leaders reclaim time, revive spirit, illuminate creative flow using what you lead with is your body-led expression, which you've talked about, right? Identifying that. Becoming unstuckable. That word struck me when I was checking out your profile. Is that, if you were unstuckable, what would you create? When you intentionally chose that word unstuckable, share that with me.
It is something that has been a 2 years in the making, and the past 6 months, 7, 8 months have been like just rapid expansion on this. I have been developing ways so that I can use creative flow, which is something that only happened by accident before I was 50. I didn't
Yeah.
know anything about it. It just happened. I kind of thought I knew what it was, but I didn't really understand it. And I was very much like a lot of other people, where I have my best ideas when I go for a walk. Or, when I'm in the shower, I have ideas. So I can be creative then. If I get stuck, that I just sleep on it. And when I had been on this mission at my job, I create too much work in my job. That's what I felt like I did. I added into my hours because I was the one, no one told me this project had to have 50 pages to it. I'm the one who decided it needed to have 50 pages. So how do I shut down part of my work time? Because work was that was the biggest number of hours in my life by far.
Mhm.
And it's not that I didn't like my work, I did, but it left no room. It suffocated everything else. And that's not what I want. And so I started looking for, how do I do more in less time? And how do I feel good about it? Because when you work those kinds of hours, even if you liked of your job, you're exhausted. You think about the things that you're missing out on, and you tend to not like anything. Eventually you say, I don't care, even if I like my coworker, I don't like work. I might like you, but I don't like work. And so I was looking for how do I change that? And so that I started tapping into, I did a couple things simultaneously. One of them was, I was really thinking about, when I do creative thing, what do I do? Because when I work on a creative thing, it seems really effortless. I enjoy it. I get a lot of oomph out of it. And
Mhm.
so how do I put that in all non-creative tasks that I have to do for work? And while I was working on exploring that and trying to dissect that backwards, reverse engineer it so that I could then implement it with intention, I also was working on my art at the same time with expressing. And that's what I call my body led. So when I first started, sometimes I would say it's intuitive art, but I don't even say that now. It's pure body expression, meaning I'm not directing it. My body is directing it, which I know comes to my brain. I'm not a psychologist or anything. I didn't study psychology or neurology or anything, but I know that it's all somehow connected. But I know that when I start thinking and directing, I get in my own way. So it became this, I call it trust with my body.
Mhm.
So it's building a trust. Kind of like if you were to get on a bicycle, if you've ridden a bicycle before, you get on it, you just trust your body's going to know exactly how to pedal, right? And how to maneuver. So I wanted to get that, but in more things in my life.
Mhm.
And between those two things, thinking about how you do creative projects, because I have endless energy when it comes to creative projects. That's the thing that comes from my flow. I think of it as it's generative energy. It's endless. I can tap it all day long and it never runs out unless it's a physical task. So I just don't, it doesn't stop me. When I have to do a lot of focus work, a lot of brain power stuff, for me at the time was writing. I have worked very hard on writing for the past year. I have always thought I was a terrible writer. So I've been something I really have dug in to work on. And so whenever there was a writing task at work, that was such hardcore focus. So I tried to figure out how I could put flow in there, because flow, the smallest amount of flow, I can get the energy boost and then I can do focus. I can get the energy boost and then I can focus. And I really, even though they do help with generate ideas, but I get really annoyed at, oh, I go for a walk and that's how I have ideas. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, how many times do you walk in the day? Like, do you go for a walk one time a day? Once a week? Is that the only time you're going to have ideas? Or the shower thing? Because I'm thinking, yeah, it's 4:30. I have a half an hour before I need to leave work so that I can get to my son's swim lesson. So, but I have to have my presentation done before I go because I could deliver it very first thing in the morning. So I can either figure out how I can get it done in this half hour and go see my son swim, or I stay late and miss my son so that I'm ready in the morning. So how do I generate that flow in a very short period of time? And there's no shower in my office at the time. Going for a walk was not a half hour walk. That would have taken care of all my half hour time. I'd still be working late. So I started looking for solutions that were 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes that would give me this boost. And my number one thing that I use on my LinkedIn posts that I have found that really helps with that is, for me, it's doodle birds. I make doodle birds all day long, everywhere.
Yeah, I know. I'm
And
looking at them in front of me right now.
and so sometimes when I know that I have an intense focused task, I'll make 5 doodle birds and then do 5 minutes and do a doodle bird and then 5 minutes and doodle bird and then 5 minutes, or whatever the time period is. And what I have found, and anybody that has practiced this, that I've given this to, and they've used it on tasks, ones that they can track. So I started doing it with a task that I had to do every quarter for work that sometimes would just take almost 2 full weeks, almost like 80 hours, the project that I'd have to do each quarter. And so I had to name certain aspects of it so I could block it out on my calendar. I was able to cut that down from about to 40% in over a course of a year. And I went and I looked, the amount of work is the same. And so I went back and figured out, what did I cut out? Because the work is still here. It's the same number of pages. It's the same amount of time of what I had to document on them. That didn't change. The complexity level was still the same. So what was different? And what I figured out what was different was, before I would type out something, I don't know if they're going to understand that. Let me rephrase that. On this one, I did it this way. Maybe I need to change it. I don't like that font. I think I should do it this way. This color is a better one. That's what I cut out. All of that doubt and indecisiveness. And once I eliminated that, I had all this other free time.
Can a creative be perfect? Because you just talk about eliminating all these extra things that maybe if you made different decisions, maybe what you're creating becomes perfect. Or is that not the desire?
I don't ever think of anything as being perfect.
And I was just going to say, perhaps that's not the right choice of words, right? We're not desiring for perfection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when I look at your doodle birds and I look at your art, because I have it all in front of me right now, and I appreciate that. I'm not striving for you to strive for perfection. I think what makes me curious as a human is when we make decisions. Like you said, I wasn't going to worry about the font. Yet I find myself, as I'm building my business, I am worried about the font, because as a creative, I'm looking for something really particular. But then do I overthink it? Do I go too far? And sometimes I struggle with just accepting, well, no, that's the right font key. Just accept font. Don't overthink it. Like, I appreciate you're like, no, that's the right font, right? And maybe sometimes as a creative, I do overthink it for perfection, when in reality, I just got to let it be honest, accept it for what it was. That's the font, right?
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah. I think if you get into that brainstorming where you're looking for, I think of I have a model of creativity that I sometimes sketch out.
Yeah.
And I think of focus and flow as the opposite ends of a spectrum, where the flow is where you take in more information, you're adding to it, and focus is where you eliminate information. If you
Mm-hmm.
hang out too long in one or the other, because I think we are constantly going back and forth between the flow and the focus.
Mm-hmm.
If you hang out too long in one of them, you're either going to get an overwhelm or you're going to start doubting and questioning yourself if you're in the other one. So it's just a matter of moving along that scale on there and knowing when is it important and when isn't important, to be that critical, like with the font. Sometimes I would find I would get stuck on documents on the font choice. This is how I knew that I was getting stuck.
Mm-hmm.
No one else was going to see that document except for me. And here I am looking at 100
Right.
font, try to figure out which one is the best one.
Yeah.
And not that I don't want something to look nice if I'm using it as a reference, even if no one's seen it. I don't have to be that picky. I can choose to spend my time on that, or I could just move on and choose the time to spend creatively on something that really matters, not that font.
Tricia, we're both active creators on LinkedIn. You are an active creator. You stand out with your content, the way you display your art. It's unlike anything else in the feeds, which I think is what makes you human, makes it real. You mentioned that, your words, I was a horrible writer up until a year or a couple of years ago. I've been trying to be a better writer. I read your stuff. I enjoy your stuff. I like your stuff. How much has ChatGPT helped you become a better writer? And maybe the answer is it hasn't, Keith. I've actually become a better writer on my own.
0.
Good for you.
When I first started on LinkedIn, it was probably like May. I mean, I'd been on LinkedIn for like years. I've had an
Yes.
account, but I never posted. When I first started, I thought I had to come in and be the authority. And here, let me share all my design knowledge with
Yes.
you,
Yeah.
And
Talking,
that,
right? Telling everybody, right?
oh my God, it just was like,
Oh, me
not
too.
good.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, me too. I'm like, hey, I'm over here, everyone. I got something to tell you. They're all like, oh yeah. Oh.
Yeah, who cares?
Who
And
cares?
exactly, that's what it was. It was
I
just like
know. Yeah.
crickets,
Yes.
Not if it's
I
not
do
even all
know.
your relatives like it.
I do know. Absolutely, I know. Yes. So what
So
changed?
I did do a little bit with ChatGPT for probably a week, and I was like, this does not sound like me. It was all, I was like, not that I didn't change it, but it was not the route that I was going for. And I signed up for a couple of, I did one self-guided writing course, but I learned a lot from it, and it was interesting. It was basically, here's some of the best copy from the past decade, and you just handwrite it and recopy it, and you learned from that way. And they would have some call out to help you to understand what was happening in that piece, why it was important. But it was more about that you copy it out and learn that way, and that was helpful because it helped a lot with rhythm and how to build that in. But where I have to give full credit to Jacob Peg. That's where I really started to learn. I joined his Modern Maker. I'm still in the program specifically to help with writing, although he does so many other things. But he really helped me to kind of understand the structure. And the thing that I loved working with him is that he helped me find me and my voice. And when I came to one of our coaching sessions and said, I think I need to say this, and I think I need to adjust it this way. He did help me with like some structural things on it, but he was all for me putting it in the voice that I think I need to be. And that was January's where I really kind of switched it up and said, you know what, I'm going to put it all out I'm going to just pour my heart out, and this is what life is often like, but it doesn't have, and just tell my story. And I use mostly me as an example in my writing. And when I told him I was going to post 2 times a day, he was also supportive of, why not experiment, see what happens. And so I appreciate that. So he helped with the technical part, but he still let me have the voice, as opposed to, we've all seen those posts where you need to tell this, and you got to have always your customer in mind and everything. And I think we're going to see a lot of people diverging from always that one style, that there's a lot of different ways that you can reach people. And it can be use yourself as the example.
I'm appreciative of you sharing that, because that is where I have started to have success on LinkedIn. The moment that I started, my highest ranking posts, my highest engaged content is when I'm sharing it from something that has happened from me. I have done this. I fell on my face and failed here, or I celebrated this, or I helped somebody do this. I never talk about my customers. I quickly learned what was going to work is when I became human and shared my human stories, and people were like, yeah, we'd like to know that about you. It quickly felt like 2007 Facebook almost, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like in a bizarre way. It's like, okay, so we're reaching back to those days to kind of share those personal stories. And I'm suspecting, Tricia, it's because on LinkedIn our feeds are caught up with so much just filler content. It's like an album, right? Bunch of filler content. Oh, good stuff. Oh, I like that personal song because they're really connecting with me as a listener. Filler, personal, right? Like your stuff stands out. Excuse me. And I'm hoping that the stuff that I create is standing out on the LinkedIn feed as well, because it's different, it's vulnerable, it's honest. I'm giving a safe space for people to come and hang out with me, right? It's because what I'm seeing with you, and I hope with what people are seeing with me, it is different. And I think that as I have been speaking to people about like this idea of personal branding, like I think, Tricia, the resume is done. Like with ChatGPT creating resumes like in seconds, I don't care about your certificates. I want to know what you can do for me. Oh, you can do this for me? Okay, great. Can you show me? Oh, okay. That's why often I show people, I have like a 14-minute video of my business athlete manifesto. I'm like, hey, you want to get to know me? Just watch this. And you'll either like me or not like me after watching that, because that's me raw in the bear right there. So, but the personal brand, because when I look at you, I can see what your personal brand is. I know what I'm buying when I see you. I'm going to get a real human being who displays her art. Like that's pretty damn raw.
Well, I think we want to know about also what people have gone through, because I've worked with people who haven't gone through so if I were to work with a male weight loss trainer, I don't think I would choose that, because they don't understand, because they don't have the same kind of body that I have, because they're male, I'm female, that they wouldn't understand some of the things. They can read about it, they can hear the stories, but there's something about that connecting with somebody to help you in a way that, oh, you've lived through this, you kind of understand it. It's kind of like if you've always been, I was thinking about this with sales recently, because that's an area that I don't like. I feel icky. I'm trying to learn how to be better at that. I think it's important for me to learn all aspects of the business. But if somebody who's a natural salesperson tried to coach me on how to do sales, I wouldn't believe anything they would say, because it comes naturally to you. You just naturally do this. You don't struggle with it. You don't understand how hard this is for me. But if somebody struggled with sales and mastered it and figured out their way of doing it, that's the person I want to work with, because they'll understand my struggle to some degree versus the person where it's naturally comes to them. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. If you're seeing my facial expressions be baffled, I'm sorry, but I have to 100% disagree with you. You're really good at sales. Do you not recognize it? And I'm sorry, but like I'm looking at your stuff in front of me here right now, and I'm listening to your words. You're well spoken, you're articulate, you're intentional, you're human. I want to buy from that person. I'm not sure if you're as bad at sales as you think you are. Maybe you and I need to spend some time together. Maybe it's actually just knowing how to subtly say, hey, Keith, is your wallet open for me to take some money out of it? I'm kind of cracking a joke with you, but Tricia, no, I sales is communication. You have a nonverbal son. You are an excellent communicator. So I'm sorry, girl. You're wrong. You're a good salesperson. Maybe just nobody's told you that. It's like my son. I got to tell my son sometimes, you're a good hockey player. I'm like, go fucking play some hockey. You're good. And then he's like, oh yeah, actually I'm pretty good. Yeah, you are really good. So I don't agree with you, because I wouldn't have, again, it's why I'm knocking your door, because you're a vulnerable human being. In my experience, that's what people want to buy from. You're not 10, you're not a child. You've had some experience in life. So, I would encourage you to go look in the mirror and go and write down the word confidence and say, yeah, I'm a good salesperson, because you are. You just don't know it yet. Sorry.
Well, I hear you, and I know also I have work inside to do.
Sure.
One of the things that did help me a lot actually, it was probably just last month that I realized this. Oh, I've sold all the time throughout when I worked for other people. I
Yeah.
sold the projects to the companies. I sold it to the higher ups. I sold to the students. I know that I've always been selling. It still feels different, and there's still something that hasn't quite clicked inside me to say, yeah, you got this. So something for sure, still working on.
That's fantastic. Tricia Edwards, I'm going to close with this. First of all, you've been awesome. I hope you have enjoyed this conversation as much as I have.
Very much.
I hope it's what you were expecting it to be, or curious to be what it's going to be. If you're seeing some of my content, it kind of gets crazy out there, but I think you can see, listen, my goal is to create safe spaces for human beings to have really good conversations. That's why I'm doing this show. It's as simple as that. I want to say thank you. And I also want to close with this. You were so damn vulnerable when I asked you for a picture. You sent a picture from 1928. Awesome, audience. Because you guys are all going to see it. Because Uncle Keith here is going to go pull himself a picture out from 1928 because Keith and Trish are about the same age. Actually, no, Trish is older than I am, which is great. I actually got somebody older on the show than me, so good. Hey, old lady. Hey, I'm going to make some fun on our thumbnail because you're at 1920.
Fantastic.
Your 1928 picture is going to go up there, and my 1928 picture is going to go up there. I'm going to go dig out an old picture too. And it's funny because this morning on the morning show, I talked with Nicole about I was a big home ec kid in grade 8, and I had made myself like a mesh like t-shirt and these spandex pants. And Nicole's like, really? I'm like, yeah. She's like, let's see that picture. I'm like, no. So no, we're not going to put that one on the thumbnail, but I'm going to find myself some crazy ass hairdo picture.
Oh yeah.
Nation, you're all
pads.
Exactly. So Nation's thinking right now, going, "Oh my God, what's Bilous talking like? What's this picture of Trish look like?" Well, you're all gonna see it because it's got the hair. I think she might have teased it out before a Guns N' Roses concert, maybe, or a Poison show, or maybe some. I think Tricia was a closet Motley Crue, Poison, because her hair is absolutely from the hair metal mindset. You see, I wasn't gonna let you get away with getting roasted from the host a little bit here. I love bringing usually my guests are sitting in the green room while I roast them, and they can't do anything because I just throw them under the bus every now and then. But it's just the fun of being in the lab. But you opened the door when you sent me that picture, and I'm full of vitamin G for you doing that. And I don't know if you've heard the term vitamin G, but we've introduced it here in the lab. I had a guest bring it to me a number of months back, one of my first guests, and I phrase it this way. I start my day with vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin E, and as I go through my day and interact with awesome people, I get served up with vitamin G and I serve it back. So from me to you, I'm serving up some vitamin G, some gratitude for meeting you and for you sharing your story with me today.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed this, and I was drawn to you as well because I can tell from when I've watched you, you're just such a real person. Well, and I like your energy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So now we've got the real shit out of the way. So Trish, you can help me. You can tell people, you can tell your actor husband, you can go across Los Angeles and put signs up for go listen to Bilous. He's got a good show. I joke and I kid, but in all seriousness, the greatest compliment you can give me is go and give a rating or review on the old podcast. Go tell your friends, go tell your family that you had a good time on the show and that there's a human being here that is trying to have good conversations. And the greatest compliment is if you have any great human beings that you think I could have a wonderful conversation with, I would love for you to send them my way.
Fantastic. I will.
Yeah. And then you know what? I think you need to join me and Nicole some mornings with a cup of coffee and your art and come in and talk vulnerability and come join us for coffee. So we've launched the morning show. We're going Monday to Friday because what I've noticed, I'll just share with the audience. I like to talk in the open. LinkedIn's rocking in the morning. Like it's rock. So West Coast time for you. So it starts rocking here. I'm in Winnipeg here in Central Time Zone. So it starts rocking like between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. It's very active. I can see it's like when the world's waking up, right? So I said to myself, all right, so the world's active. People are checking out profiles, checking out the feed. If I go live at that time and broadcast in, what's the reaction going to be like? Like old school talk radio mornings. Mm-hmm. It's what's happened. So I go live in the mornings and people are popping in, they're interacting, they're watching the show and like, okay, there's something going on here. So it's been pretty cool. And we're going to keep doing it. So we got this morning show going Monday to Friday. And it's just a way, it's like your morning alarm clock, so I'm selling people on this idea of holding them accountable, giving you your accountability partner. I've had a lot of people knock on my door saying, hey, Keith, yeah, you always show up. Yeah, I built a career doing that. Could you help me show up? Sure, I'll be there at 6 o'clock tomorrow. So that's what this morning show is really turning into. Is it's an hour. We run it for 2 hours, but it's an hour fun show, a cup of coffee, topics of the day. Today we talked about naked cruising. Apparently, there's 572,000 people that were surveyed with Carnival Cruise Lines that were curious about the fact that if they're standing naked and sitting naked on their balconies, if people can see them, of course they can. We talked about supercharging your business strategies this morning. So we try to take pillars, Tricia, from business, athletics, performance, and lifestyle longevity, and talk about them. So we'd love to have you join us. Honest to God, drop in for 50 minutes, half an hour, 10 minutes, talk about some stuff of the day, share a doodle bird.
Yep.
You're a creator,
Yep.
right? In the feed, make some content with us. Would you do that?
I would totally do that. I'm an early bird. I get up between 4:30 and 5 every morning.
So we're going to be there tomorrow morning. I'm telling you right now, if you see us there, come knock on my door, say, hey, I see you guys. I'll give you the StreamYard link. You come and join us. Have a coffee with us.
All
like,
right.
honest to God. Like I'm just, and when I'm done, I'll just kick you out. It's okay, Trish, we're done with you. We're going to our next segment. I'll see you later.
Awesome.
And you'll know that there's no hard feelings. We're just putting on a show.
Yep.
Awesome. Hey, so much. Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Keith.
Awesome. So listen, here's what I do. I'm going to put you on. So what I like to do is, because I've recorded this thing, I'm going to stick you back in the green room. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, and I'm going to come back and walk you out. All right? Hang tight.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Tricia Edwards, Nation, you got to check her stuff out. You got to go to her LinkedIn profile. It is unlike anything you're going to see, which is why I reached out to Tricia. And you guys know me. I'm always seeking curious. As a curious soul, I'm always seeking interesting people. And I'm telling you, sometimes when you meet somebody on the surface, you're thinking they're not that interesting. But I watched Tricia's stuff. I watched her content. No, not stalker. I'm a creator. I see the stuff on LinkedIn. Started seeing her pictures. They're from a human. I started reading her words. They're from a human. And you start seeing the way she makes her comments and interacts with the world. And you're going, wow, that's an interesting human being with some stories to tell. And as you just heard by this last hour, what an inspiring human being that Tricia Edwards is. So I hope you have enjoyed the hour chat or so I've had with Tricia. And my goal is we're wrapping up is when you hit the old stop or pause on the old VHS you're listening to us on right now, or the beta, those things still exist. You say to yourself, I'm going forward and I'm going to share something from myself. I hope that we have inspired you to be you. There you go. All right. I'm going to get out of here. Depending on when you're hearing this, I'll be on in the morning with Nicole for Mornings in the Lab with Keith and Nicole. And I'm also dropping stuff at noon. And I'm going to drop stuff just every other hour of the day because I just like making content for you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm out of here.